it could even be trends, not like fashion trends, but just like trends of like how the world is moving. Like right now, we're moving into a darker energy. You know what I'm saying? Like the
Mhm.
world is coming into everything. Like the music I've been listening to this year, the imagery I've been seeing this year, everything has been getting darker. You know what I'm saying? I could point
Mhm.
it out in so many different ways, but that's just it feels like I'm being observant, but I also feel it, right? So then I kind of like have my guard up for the last time that everything was darker. And it's not because it's an election year. You know what I'm saying? Like you could tell in the imagery of the music and people's album artwork, and the sounds and the direction that it's going in, it's similar. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, and sometimes I wonder if these people do it intentionally or if it's something that they can't help or they're not paying attention to.
Hey everyone, let's start healing. I'm Adrienne Murchison, and welcome to episode 136 of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. I have titled this episode, How to Not Get Rattled. And my guest today is a recurring guest, my nephew Russell, who lives in Virginia. And we start off talking about empathy, and that is the running theme throughout the episode. And what is so interesting for me about the conversation is that we really get into the space between being empathetic and giving too much to someone else who has a lot of emotion, a lot of energy, a lot of agita, just giving them too much of ourselves. And that space between that and just not caring, just saying, well, that doesn't have anything to do with me. And I think it is a very, very interesting conversation. Russell was actually on a couple of episodes last year. I love to have him on the podcast. And when he was on earlier in the year last year, I remember saying to him, is he okay? Is anything going on? Because he just didn't seem himself. And he's like, no, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. I just been tired. And then after the podcast, he lets me know that he and his beautiful wife, Faye, are expecting another baby. They already have two children and they are expecting another child. And so that child turns out to be Lauren, who I bring up in this episode. So we only touch on that a little bit, but I wanted to poke him a little bit about that because he's going to disagree with what I just told you. And he is my late brother Russell's son. So I often call this Russell Little Russell because that's what we called him, Little Russell. But I don't call him that during the conversation. But this 42-year-old man is Little Russell to me, my beloved nephew. But he is a brilliant mind. And I love talking to him about a variety of different things. And I want to bring up something that came up towards the end of the conversation. I mentioned that it's important to have wisdom to not buy into everything that we hear and that we consume. And he said, you can't. If you buy into something, that means that you're trying to be sold. You're trying to be sold on it. And the importance is to let the thing that we're consuming, that we take in through social media and other aspects of the internet, is to let that connect with our spirit and not let it rule us, but for us to be discerning. And that just really had me thinking about a lot of things because where I am right now is I feel that where we are in this world with everything that's going on, as I'm coming to you right now, there's protests and law enforcement. There's protests on college campuses and law enforcement going onto those campuses and taking down encampments. And I am not taking or voicing, I'm not voicing one side or another. But we are in such a state right now when it comes to this, when it comes to the conflict in the Middle East that these universities are speaking to, when it comes to the wars that are going on there and elsewhere, the presidential election, everything. Everything is really, in my view, calling on us to really take a look at ourselves and look at who we are and what we stand for, not what we stand for in terms of whatever the issue is, what we stand for as a person, really connecting with ourselves and knowing what is truth for us individually, respectively. What is our truth? I just had a birthday, and something that has been resonating for me each year as I get older is, and you hear this from other people, that your priorities change. What's important to you change. I'm a person that is uh, really attached to memories because my immediate family, my parents and my brothers, are gone. They've passed away. And so since my dad, who's the first to passed away, I have been so attached to the memories of them and the memorabilia of them because it's a way that I can stay connected. And I'm very much connected to them in spirit. And I'm saying that to say that it also takes me back to 30 years ago when I was working with a friend, and he had a friend who had was living in the Caribbean, and she had lost, all of her belongings, and he was asking her, "What can I send you?" And she said, "Books." And I don't know this person, I don't know her name. I'm not still in touch with this friend, but that really struck me because I've been so attached to my family's belongings. And this person, she just wanted books. She didn't want to get back. She didn't want to replace the items that she lost at her home in this hurricane. What she wanted was books. And that's an example to me of how our priorities can change as we get older. And what we know to be true is not necessarily the same as it was 20 or 30 years ago. And the world is changing. The world is changing. We are not where we were even in 2015, much less 2005 or 1999 or 2000 before 9/11. We are not in the same place. And really, it's about, what do we stand for individually? Who are we? Who are we? Who are you? Who are you? And we're not here forever. So, what do you believe? What do you believe takes place when you transition from this life? Do you believe that that's just it? Hey, I'm in this life. I'm alive right now. When I die, that's it. Period. Darkness, unconsciousness, permanence, kaput. Or do you believe that you transcend from this form to another space and time? And what does that look like? Does that look like your idea of heaven? Does that look like your idea of another galaxy? And I say that because I have friends who have talked about that. But what does it look like for you? And what does it mean? How does that relate to how you are living now and what your mindset is now and how you relate to your fellow man now? And I say fellow man because the hardest part, I would say, it's either up there with number 1 or number 2. The hardest part of my spiritual path is, uh, embracing and loving my fellow man who is who I might find hateful, disrespectful, who might make me angry, seeing love in that person in the moment that I feel the things that come up from those type of people. But if we believe in divinity, if we believe in God, if we believe in Jesus, Allah, the universe, if we believe in those things, then we have to be higher than our human mindset. And so before I get to my conversation with Russell on how to not be rattled, I wanted to share something that I probably shared a little bit of this in the past. And it is something that a friend turned me onto called the Sedona method. And it is about releasing. And it is, as I said, it's about releasing and letting go. And I have seen a number of videos that some of them are dated. And they are by Hale Dwoskin. I want to make sure I get his name right because I have written down some of the things he said in his meditation decades ago that I find very powerful. Again, this is about letting go of things that may be coming up for us in the moment. And one of the things that I heard him say, lines that I heard him say in one of the first recordings that I heard was, "Can I let this go? Would I let this go? If so, when?" And the question of, "Can I let this go? Would I let this go?" He would say, "Am I willing? Are you willing?" Excuse me, there's so much pollen in the air. Excuse me. So he would say, "Are you willing to just try? Like, I don't know if I can, but yeah, I'm willing to just try." And then, if so, when? So one of his meditations, he has a it's a little lengthy and it was so powerful for me that I wrote it down. And whenever I'm in real pain, I will read this and it vacillates from trying to control someone else and having a dislike from someone else to the space of, did I try to control this person? Did I disapprove of this person? So it goes from, did this person disapprove of me? Did they try to control me, to did I disapprove of them? Did I try to control them? Before I share a couple of lines, this is just so powerful to me because it's a reminder that it's really on us individually to deal with our own shit. It really is. It is on us individually. The most dislikable people on this planet, or disagreeable person, or someone who's in our immediate life who may drive us bananas. It's hard. It can be hard for me to remember that it's not about them. If they drive me bananas, It's not about them, it's about my healing, because there's other things that somebody else could do that won't drive me bananas. It could be something very similar, but I'm healed in that area. Everything is about our healing and recognizing self-forgiveness and seeing ourselves in that other person that just drives us batty or that we just find hateful. Everything is about finding something in them to remember that they also are a child of God. And trust me, that's hard for me. That's hard for me, but I am willing to put forth that effort and to try and remember that I'm no better than that person. Really, actually, no better than the worst person you can think of or that I can think of. So I just want to share this before we go to the conversation. It's just a few lines, and I'm really starting in the middle of this releasing from Hale Dwoskin in a meditation that he did that can be found on YouTube. And it says, did this person try to control me or did it feel that way? And if so, could I let go of trying to control them back? Did I try to control this person or did I want to? And if so, could I let go of wanting to control this person as best I can? And if so, could I let go of trying to control this person as best I can? And if so, could I let go of wanting to control this person? Could I let go as best I can? Could I allow this person to be the way they are? Would I allow this? Would I allow myself to grant this person to be the way this person is? Do I now grant this person to be the way this person is? Because the agita that I have is about me. It's about me and my stuff. So, would I allow myself to grant this person to be the way this person is? Do I now grant this person to be the way this person is? And can I do that without buying into all of their emotion and their issues? Do did I dislike or disapprove or any of let me start over. Did I dislike or disapprove of anything in this person? And if so, can I let go of withholding my approval from them and withholding my love? Could I let that go? Just a little bit more. Did they dislike or disapprove of anything in me? And if so, could I let go of wanting their approval or their love as best I can? Did they dislike or disapprove of anything in me? And if so, could I let go of wanting their approval or their love? Could I allow myself to have only love feelings for this person? And in my words, this person that drives me bananas or that I just disdain. Could I allow myself to have only love feelings for this person? Would I allow myself to have only love feelings for this person? Do I allow myself to have only love feelings for this person? And he says, it's just a choice. Did this person challenge, oppose, or threaten me? Or did it feel this way? And if so, can I let go of wanting to protect myself from them as best I can? Because we're safe. Can we let go knowing that we are actually safe? Could I let go of wanting to be safe from them? Did I challenge, oppose, or threaten them? Did I want to? And if so, could I let go of wanting to challenge, oppose, or threaten them as best I can? Could I allow myself to have only a feeling of well being, a feeling of safety and trust with this person? I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop here because you get the feeling, you get the vibe. You get the vibe. It's really powerful. I've had to use this, and it's much longer than what I'm sharing. I have had to use this as a source of healing when I felt hurt by someone or anyone, because it's a reminder that I am responsible and accountable to my own feelings around it, even when I believe that that person has hurt me. And that goes back to me, what Russell said to me in the interview, in the conversation that you will hear, where he says, you can't buy into something that means you were trying to be sold on it. And I mean, that's really a reckoning that we have with ourselves. And that when I first discovered what I just shared with you, the Sedona method of releasing and letting go, and I have such a thing around being controlled. But if I'm controlled, then some part of me is allowing myself to be controlled. And that transcends into everything. If there's something we dislike about somebody else, something they're doing, there's some part of us that is allowing ourselves to engage in that. And thus, we get back to the title of this podcast: How to Not Get Rattled. How to not get rattled, how to not buy into, invest into someone else's whole ball of wax around what they're suffering around or what they're hurting around. As an empath, you as an empath, to not take a deep dive into that, but also be able to be there for them. So the space between that and having an attitude of, that doesn't have anything to do with me, I don't care. I don't care. There is a space in between, because we are all in this together. We are all one. We have more in common than we think. And what we have in common can indeed change the world. So let's get started. Let's meet Russell once again, and let's start healing. Welcome, Russell.
Hi. What's happening?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm all right.
I think this is the first time this year, and maybe you did something last summer when we talked about Dion, and before that it was last like April or something.
It's been that long?
Yes, you're not on here as often as you should be.
No, I'm just talking about as a time frame thing. But yeah, I know it's the first time this year.
Yeah, yeah. So, how you feeling in your skin today?
I'm cool. It's good. It's kind of gloomy around here, so it's just one of those rainy days, but nothing big.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Me, you, and Charles did a podcast where maybe it was after, I can't remember if it was after the podcast or during the podcast, where you let us know about Lauren.
Yeah, like, but
Yeah.
I still think, but even with Lauren, that's still like a while ago. That would
Yeah,
have been the summer. I felt like we did one in the fall. We had to if we talked about
maybe,
Dion.
maybe. But the point is, you have a daughter,
Yes.
a new daughter. You have a new
Yes.
daughter.
Yes.
How's that working out for you?
That's fine. It's cool. She's small, man, so you know how it is. She ain't
Yeah,
really doing too much. She likes to communicate though.
she does. How does she communicate?
Mainly with her eyes, but she talks a lot. Like in the form of like making sounds. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like you got to kind of pick up on what she's trying to say, but it's not too much. It's just more like emotions or being displeased with something.
And you feel that exchange of communication, that must be awesome.
I'm a good communicator. At least I think
Mhm.
so.
Yeah. Well, that kind of feeds into, um, what our topic is today,
Yeah.
which is where I wanna talk about being an empath,
hmm
and I think that I know that you say that you're not an empath, and I wanted to say that I agree with you in general, but I think as I'm looking over what I'm looking at that I'm gonna share, I think that you have absolutely empath qualities, you just don't exercise them.
That's possible. I think anybody can be empathetic. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I think there's a secular version of empath now. Now that people are starting to become more and more aware of the different languages, whether it's spirituality or religion or whatever. So people use just terms like you'll hear narcissist all the time, like from a psychologist standpoint. It's
Yes.
just you're just hearing secular versions or dumbed down versions of the word. So if you go to the true root meaning of an empath, I could very well be an empath, but
Mhm.
I'm not an empath on the level of somebody who says they're an empath, if that makes
Right,
sense.
right. I think I'm an empath.
You're definitely an empath.
The true meaning of the word, and I wanna mention narcissism. I felt like that was the word of the year last year. I
Yeah.
just heard that all the time, and I really did not, uh, know what a narcissist was until maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and
Mhm.
then I met a narcissist, and that person's children, adult children, were telling me that he was a narcissist, and I
Mhm.
started seeing it, and so last year when I kept hearing, "He or she is a narcissist," I was like, "No, they're not." I didn't feel like
Right.
they were truly the
Yeah.
definition of what a narcissist is.
I agree. I just think you have to know what, like, the ebbs and the flows are of, like, the language. Like, clout is such a trivial word to me. Like, people say they do it for clout, like, clout means attention, but clout is like respect, but you
Yeah.
gotta go with what it is, you know what I mean?
Mhm. I do. So, all right, let me show you or share with you what this says. I'm on healthline.com
Okay.
and it says, under what is an empath, it says a person who is highly attuned to the energies and emotions of those around them may be considered an empath. They're said to feel what others are feeling so deeply that they absorb or take on the emotions, often at the expense of their own well-being, emotional well-being. And then later on, I saw that it could be connected to trauma because if you're an empath, it can have to do with neurons
Mhm.
in your brain,
Mm.
and that could be tied to trauma, which I thought was really interesting.
Right. So your second definition is what we would consider like the normal definition that everyone subscribes to as an empath, which I would
Mhm.
not fall under that category. But I would be highly like in regard in the first definition.
The first definition of, let me
Mhm.
go back because I'm
Like, if
scr
you go back and read that, that's me.
hold up, hold up. A
Okay.
person who is highly attuned to the energies and emotions of those around them, which you are.
Yeah.
That
But then
helps
part two, I'm
you.
nothing. Nah, that last part, that's where it all goes. I ain't putting nobody before me, like in my as far as my well being.
No,
My
you're not
kids
gonna
or
do
my wife,
that.
you know what I'm saying? But not like I'm talking about like, somebody regular. Like, nah.
But I think, like, one of the descriptions of maybe a person is an empath is that you could experience emotional or sensory overload. And I think you
Yeah,
could, but you just,
I don't.
you
Yeah.
right, you don't allow
I do.
yourself to go there because you are capable of that.
Exactly, exactly. And it's very easy for me to feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the reason that I wanted to talk with you because we're very similar to in my opinion,
Mhm,
but we're also very different.
mhm,
And so, yeah, I do feel other people's emotions. And so I think that's just a natural part of me. And so my job is to not take the emotions on that
exactly.
I may see or
That's where we
notice.
differ. It's
Right.
right there at that point.
Right. But
Yup.
you're so good at that, and what makes you good at that? I mean, I know we could say you don't care, and maybe
Mm-mm,
you
it's
don't know, but what?
I wouldn't say that. I think when I don't know, man. Growing up as an only child, I think you have to pay attention to you more than you would say if you were distracted. The more people around you, the less attention you can pay to yourself. And so, therefore, you have to have like a conscious effort of paying attention to yourself and what makes you tick. And when you're alone, that's when you're able to do that. When you grow up in a big family or you go to a big school or you're very popular or you're famous, you're you're so involved with the needs and energies of others and you can get a high from that that it doesn't seem like it bothers a person until it bothers a person. That's why you see famous people kinda crash out, or you see popular people take on too much in high school movies or in high school in general. You know what I mean? It's like, "Oh, he had everything. What happened?" He didn't get a chance to pay attention to himself, or she didn't get a chance to pay attention to herself. So, therefore, she wasn't in tune, and now everything's crashing down. With me, it was kinda the opposite, you know? So, I was one of those people, um, I joke around all the time. I say I'm real easy to love. Because I think more people like me than I care to take on. I'm not one of those people that say I don't like people because I do like people. I love people. And I'm not one of those people that, I just don't want to be famous and I don't want to have too many people pulling on me at one time. And so therefore, that's what makes me shut it off. And I guess I just found that growing up.
Yeah. I think that's up goes back to the energy thing to
Hmm.
me, because if there's too many people pulling on you, then that's a lot of energy.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
Yep.
I also see a distinction still between us, and I obviously we're 2 different people, but I have had a lot of time to tap into how I feel, what made me I like to play this exercise with myself even of how did I get to this thought? You know,
Hmm.
and I like to backtrack to, where did this thought come from? I was just sitting up here thinking about this, and I'll backtrack. So I like
Okay.
to stay
Okay.
in
I follow.
tune with yeah, I like to stay in tune with my thoughts and my feelings, but I still can really understand and feel what somebody else is going through.
Do you feel like you think deeply throughout the day? Like, I mean, deeply, like, not necessarily like you're meditating per se, but, like, just that whole, backtracking through your thoughts. Do you feel like, 1, throughout the day, you're consciously present in that, and then sometimes you just fall off, and then you have to go back and do that? Or do you feel like you have so many other things that you're thinking about that, you have to go back and kinda backtrack to how you got to where you were, if that makes
Well,
sense?
what I'm talking about, I mostly do that in my own downtime. I
Okay.
don't usually do that during the course of the day, but I like to try to be present during the course of the day to understand what I'm feeling. And sometimes that can be I'm more in deep thought, going back to your question. I'm
Mhm.
more in thought if I'm not working, quote
Yeah.
unquote working,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
because I can get caught up in the thought of what I'm working on for my
Okay.
job. But if I just have just my own time and my own autonomy, then I get deep, deep into thoughts and feelings and revelations and things like that.
So maybe our definitions of deep thought are different, but I feel like I'm in deep thought most of the time until I have to focus on something. So like anytime I'm like say for instance if I'm really focusing on doing a task because now it's requiring more brain power than I normally would have to put into it, then I'm not in deep thought. I know I'm not because I'm actually focused. But for the most part, I'm just thinking all day. Even when I'm talking to people, I'm thinking. sometimes I'm having conversations with people, and the main thing that I'm thinking about is not what Imma say, is why do they think this? And that's what makes me say what I'm saying. Or why do I think this? Which makes me ask them a question to see if they think the same thing. So that's why I was asking you that. I have no rhyme or reason if that matters. I was just wondering.
I like that. I like that. I like how you don't care as much about something. So I might care a lot because there was something I was talking to you about, a work situation I was
Mhm.
talking to you about a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like riled.
Yeah.
And basically, you were letting me know it's because I care. Like
Yeah.
the situation is a situation,
Mhm.
but you care.
Yeah. I think more so than anything, one, that's the factor of work.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that would hire me would look at this as a detriment, but it's really a benefit. I don't really care about work. I just do the work. I do what I'm supposed to do. Either it's gonna get done or it's not gonna get done. But what it's not gonna do is affect me emotionally. So I don't take ownership of the work, even though that's what they try to preach at jobs. You know what I mean? And so to me, I don't get rattled by stuff like that. But I do understand people who are workaholics or people who take pride in their work or people who have professions where the work is so personal that they have to take pride in it because then their job wouldn't be done as well. I
Right.
don't have one of those jobs. My job is very black and white. Whether I'm proud of it at the end of the day or I'm not, doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of what happens. Right? Like I could not care about it and it gets done the same way if I cared about it. I could not feel like doing it, it would get done the same way as if I did feel like doing it. Your job is a little different, so I can understand it. But that's how people get to the place that they get to. I don't really suffer from job stress. And that leads me to my second thing. I don't care about money. Like, I care about the things that you have to get with money, but money is like time to me. You know what I mean? It's really an abstract thing. You think it's concrete, but it's abstract. You don't know how much time you have. So you really can't plan for anything, but you're supposed to plan for stuff, but those plans can always go awry. It's the same thing with money. You can get as much money as you want, but at the end of the day, you'll find out that it's more about what you're trying to obtain in general than the money itself. So then
Yeah.
I'm not stressed by a job because no matter what happens, I have to find a way to get money if I want to do stuff I want to do.
Yeah. I like that because I've thought about that a lot since you first shared that with me a while ago,
Mhm.
because I think it's so smart because as time goes on, as life goes on, you start people, I think, start understanding what's important and what's not important.
Right.
And what you're talking about to me is peace.
Yeah.
And getting caught up in the grind of the thoughts about
Mhm.
money and what I have and what I don't have, and all of that to me can disrupt peace. And I just want to add that I pretty much agree and feel like I have a good deal of that mindset. But for me, my self worth
Mhm.
has gotten caught up with the money in the past.
Mhm.
Am I
Mhm.
worthy, of this? Am I worthy of that? So
Mhm.
there's the rub.
Okay, so there's a few things that you said that was like pretty key. So when we were talking about the original part of where you and I divide as empaths, peace is the reason why I cut stuff off. That's why I have the apathy that I have. It's not that I don't care necessarily. It's more or less like, is this going to affect my peace? Yes or no? That's the first thing. The second thing is your self worth is kind of like it's a trick, right? Because if it's really your self worth, then it isn't predicated on how much somebody else thinks you should get.
Whoa.
It's pretty much, you know
Yes,
what I'm saying?
that's true. That's
You know what I
true.
mean? So, like, to me, when I work at a job, I'm getting paid to do what I feel I put it this way. The job gets what I feel like it should get based upon what they pay me. We've
Right.
agreed to this. We've agreed to a certain just tasks, responsibilities, whatever, right? When I sign on, I agree that I'm going to do these things. That doesn't mean I'm gonna stress myself out. That doesn't mean any of those other things, right? It doesn't mean I'm gonna break the rules necessarily, but at the same time, I'm not gonna go above and beyond before I get my money.
Right.
We've made an agreement that I'm doing it for this amount. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I'm not the intern type dude. I'm not the, grind it out and it'll pay off at the end. That feels like a Ponzi scheme to me. It feels like you're selling me something. I don't buy stuff.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't like being sold on anything. You know what I mean? That's just how I am.
Yeah, yeah. And whenever I'm on this concept of money, I
Mhm.
think about this person, this friend that I had. We were the same age, and
Mhm.
she was very. We were both contractors, but in different industries.
Okay.
And she was very conservative about her money because she's thinking long term,
Right.
which is responsible,
Mhm.
but very, very conservative and tight, about what she wanted to do, in terms of luxuries or, just for herself, right?
Understand. Mhm.
And I'm less that. I'm
Right.
less that, and I was thinking about how really I should be like her, right? And so I'm not saying that I'm right in saying this because I'm not. I just don't believe that necessarily. But what's interesting to me is that she passed away. She got
Right.
sick and she passed away, and I thought, what is the right answer? And I think like you're in the middle, and
Well,
I
I think
think that's what it's about. It's about peace and
yeah, I know what you're saying. To be honest with you, I really understand like both sides of it. And I'm more of a do what comes naturally person to you and then kind of trim the fat the opposite way. So, like, if you're really good at pinching pennies and you barely spend money on yourself, then just keep pinching pennies and then try to spend more money on yourself. If you're good at spending money on yourself, but you're not good at pinching pennies, spend your money how you spend your money, but try to cut back on some of that spending. Because I think when people go against the grain of their nature, it can kind of cause some form of instability. Like, it's not natural to you to just never spend your money. It's just not gonna work for you. You know what I'm saying? And the same is for the person who feels like they need to have a nest egg for a rainy day, because to them, there's peace in knowing, hey, I may never need to use this money, but I know I have it. And to you, there's uh, a certain level of, I don't want to call it not peace, but you're like, man, it would really piss me off if I saved all this money and I didn't get to spend it and I didn't get to do X, Y, and Z along the way. Got to do X, Y, and Z along the
right,
way.
right,
You know what
right,
I'm saying? You just
right.
got to figure it out for yourself. To me,
Exactly.
and I know this personally because my dad was the perfect form of that kind of balance to me, and then still ended up in the same situation where he had money, he spent money, he saved money, and then before he was able to even enjoy his retirement, which he spent a lot of time talking about, he passed away. So it's like you got balance, and at the end of the day, you kind of got to just let it play out how it plays out.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's so interesting. Um, yeah, so I was about to ask you, but I guess you answered this question, like, what do you make of that? But you said you just have to let it unfold the way it does, the way it's
What
going
do I
to.
make of it for him?
Yeah.
Um, it's hard to say, right? Because my dad took a lot of value in being dependable and being reliable, somebody that people close to him could lean on. Um, I'm that way more emotionally than I am in concrete ways. You know what I mean? Like money or, if somebody called me, no matter what, I'm gonna do something at the drop of a hat. I'm generally that way if we're close enough, but more so than anything, I wouldn't leave anybody alone. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like if you that's how you can depend on me. You can depend on me like in a time of despair. One, I'm gonna make you feel better about whatever's going on. Imma try to give you some clarity about whatever's going on. And I'm gonna make sure you don't feel alone. Like you don't feel like you don't have anybody to talk to. Like that would be one of the one things that kind of like would piss me off if I counseled somebody, and I don't mean counsel in the way of like I'm above somebody. We all receive counseling from each other in that way. And then you hear them tell the story like nobody was in my corner. It's like, what? But that's how I'm dependable. I think my dad was could have been dependable in that way, but I think he and I are, like, different in that way. I was more emotional than he
Right,
was. He was
right.
more, like, planner, reliable in that way.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. I think he was emotional in his way, just kept it inside.
I mean, it's hard to say because, I mean, he obviously didn't put himself first.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I think he's one of those people that put people around him first, and if nobody felt that way, I would feel that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, if people around were like, "Well, I didn't feel like he put me first," it wouldn't matter to me.
Right.
I could point out times where I'm like, Nah." You know what I'm saying? Because if he really wanted to do this, he coulda done it, but he didn't, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. Okay, descriptions of an empath.
mhm.
Closeness and intimacy can overwhelm you. That
Hmm,
doesn't describe me.
that doesn't s hey, it doesn't describe me either.
You have good intuition.
Mhm. I think I
Yes.
have good intuition.
You take comfort in nature.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm a water sign. I need water.
You're a Pisces.
Yes, I'm a
Right,
Pisces.
right. You don't do well in crowded places. Is that true?
Who, me?
Yeah,
I'm fine. I'm
yeah,
fine at crowded, but we run races, we run marathons.
exactly. Well, I will say that I crowds don't bother me, but I could be claustrophobic if we're too tight.
Crowds only bother me when I have people I have to protect. So it creates a form of guardedness about the ones around me. I would much rather go out by myself in a big crowd than take my family in a big crowd, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Well, this isn't you. You have a hard time not caring. Is that you?
Nah, no.
It says empaths want to help. That's me.
I do wanna help. I just don't wanna help people at my own expense. I have a desire to help. I have a desire to, like, solve a problem, but I won't do it at my own expense.
Right, right. And I'm getting better at that.
You know what I have a hard time with? And I don't know if it falls into this category. I have a hard time caring about other people's problems more than they care about them.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know.
You're like, "I don't know what to tell you."
Yeah, I don't.
People tend to tell you their problems.
Yes,
Yeah, I agree. Okay, you have a high sensitivity to sounds, smells, or sensations.
definitely.
Yeah. You need time to recharge.
Yep.
You don't like conflict.
I don't like it, but yeah, I don't like it, but I'm built for conflict. It's not
Mhm.
something that I run to. It's not something
Okay.
that I relish in, but I'm a vengeful person before I'm like a aggressive person, if that makes sense. I like to feel like whatever I have to do conflict wise is justified.
Yeah. Well, when you say you were built for conflict, also you mean like you can resolve conflict? Are you a good mediator?
All of it. I think
Oh,
so. I
okay.
think so. I think more than anything, it all comes to growing up. I think if your environment is hostile, you have no reason to fear conflict because you grew up in that hostility. And I grew up in hostile environments as far as not in the home, but out of the home.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a big brother or big sister, and I didn't have cousins. All my cousins were in New York, and Tanya is the only cousin that was in Virginia. You know what I'm saying? Seriously. So if I went outside and I got into a fight with a dude, there was nobody to like go get unless it was a homie that I
Right.
be friends with. And but by that time I had fought so much, it was like I can fight my own battles.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So you're just not scared of conflict. I guess that's what I mean by built for conflict. And that could be anything. That could be an argument, that could be a fist fight, that could be a debate, that could be whatever.
Right. Right, right. Well, I'm gonna leave it alone. I was gonna say I was in a conflict today, conflict resolution.
Okay, okay. That's cool. If it's conflict resolution.
It was a conflict resolution, but Imma leave it alone.
It's silly.
Um, how about you tend to isolate?
Uh, no, I wouldn't say that I tend to isolate. I isolate in my thoughts, you know what I mean? But it's the same way that I need to recharge. I just need the ability to recharge in my thoughts. It's not necessarily like, if you ask my son, I mean, you know who my son is, but to the people who don't know, if you ask my son, he would always say that, "Alright, dad, I know what Imma give you. Imma just let you chill." Like, cause I say it so much. Like, sometimes I just be like, "Yo, just chill, just let me chill." And that doesn't mean I need to go in my room, close the door, or whatever, or I don't need people around me. You could be right beside me, but if you're not like, affecting my thought process or causing me to work my brain, then I can recharge.
Well, do you ever feel physically drained? Because I can feel mentally drained and I can feel physically drained.
If I don't get enough sleep, or you mean emotionally I can feel physically drained?
Physically drained as a result of energy that you've been around, whether you were engaging in that energy or you were observing the energy over a
Yes.
period of time.
Yeah, in those 2 situations is primarily gonna be a personal, like an extremely personal relationship. Like if I had conflict with like my parents or something like that, that can drain me physically. If I'm in a relationship with a partner that isn't on the same page as me, that can be emotionally draining. You know what I'm saying? It's not really like a everybody can do it thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But it can be that.
yeah. I was just thinking how one thing that I do that I attribute to being an empath is that I anticipate what somebody else is thinking and what
Yeah.
they're feeling.
Yeah, that's
Like
a
today when I knew that you were, being some kind of way about the time that we were gonna meet.
Ah! So, yes, an empath such as yourself will ignore real words
It's not true.
and go with what you
That's
heard.
one thing I don't do is ignore real words.
Real words. But it's cool. It's cool. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
I don't that's something that I do. So, based upon feeling people's energy and being intuitive, I don't react on my intuition
Mhm.
unless it's something to protect me or protect somebody else.
Right.
Or it feels like I know something won't get done, so then I'll do it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
as far as like allowing somebody to play out whatever they're gonna play out, yeah, I do that all the time, even if I think the opposite will happen.
Right. I mean, I do that in many situations too, but
Mhm.
it's a part of me. I feel like so often I know what people are thinking.
Mm.
And I mean, oftentimes I don't know what people are thinking or I could
Yeah,
be wrong,
I know what
but yeah, but I just know. And then part of that is culturally too. I think that, us just being black or people of color,
yeah.
that, we're just used to that
Mhm.
in many ways.
Yeah. I agree with that, and plus, I think if you're an observant person, then that also plays into the role too. So,
Yeah.
that's one of those things too, like, if you know somebody, then obviously you're gonna know what they think at some point in time. That's not like an arrogant thing to say.
Yeah.
It's just more observant.
You I don't think this is true for you. You have a hard time setting boundaries.
No. Nope. Nope.
I'm learning. I mean, I'm much better. And then plus some of the tools that I get from you is I might say maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm king maybe. That's another thing my son will say, and don't say maybe. He needs a yes or no.
You wanna know if you'll do this or that.
Yeah, and don't say maybe, 'cause I say maybe. I don't wanna I'm not one of I guess I don't know what part of that part of my personality that is, but I'm not one to wanna be, I don't wanna give finality to anything one way or the other. I feel like that's kinda, like, limiting, and
Yeah.
so when I say maybe, you can probably tell in my tone whether it's maybe no, maybe yes, but it's really like I'm not trying to box myself in. You know what I'm saying? And that works for me as well as the person that I'm dealing with in the moment because my default answer whenever I feel uncomfortable or whenever I'm unsure is no. It's just no.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think spiritually, that is almost the thing to do. It's do nothing, which
Yeah.
is no.
Yeah.
If you're uncertain,
Yep.
the answer is to do nothing.
Yep. That's my natural thing. So if you don't take my maybe, it's usually gonna result in no.
Right. I've
Yep.
made so many mistakes of saying yes too soon. I still say yes too soon.
It's hard for me to say yes. I feel like it's too many unknowns.
That's
So
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 good.
what I mean by that, like, you say, "Hey, Russell, I wanna do a pod this day, blah, 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 or I wanna do a pod next week. Is that cool?" And I say, "Yes." That's because I know what I'm getting into. You know what I'm saying? They're like, "Yeah, ain't no problem." You know what I mean? But if I were to say, maybe," then that means I got some other questions. Not even that I necessarily have something to do because we didn't even lock down the day. The
Right.
maybe is more around the uncertainty and the
Right.
unknown.
Right. 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 You do see the world in unique ways,
That's an
don't you?
arrogant statement, but yeah.
It says
I say that because, like, okay, I'm a Pisces, right? And of course, we always get judged in this different type of way, you know? But we're also the last zodiac sign. And I was always a person who always sat in the back of the class. And everybody always would be like, if you want to look studious, you sit in the front. But it's like, nah, I learned better seeing everything than being in front and everything's behind me. That's just how I am as a person. So that's the uniqueness of the way I see the world and see like things. But that doesn't necessarily make you the same as a person who's a leader. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who has to stand at the forefront and see the world as a visionary or see the world, in a different type of way. That's a unique quality too. And everybody doesn't have that quality. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't want to take that away from somebody.
right.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to change the subject, but you
All
just
right.
had me thinking about something I was watching. I don't remember what podcast or show, and they were talking about how whenever we get to, say, as a country or world where it seems like we're making progress
Mhm.
towards positivity or caring about each other, then something happens. You know who it was?
What's that?
Oh my god. It was it was your boy Vlad. It was him.
Okay. I mean, Vlad
It was him. It was
nah,
him.
Vlad is a thinker though. Like I can say that, but Vlad is a calculated person. You gotta be careful with them calculated.
Yeah, yeah, and he had a couple of examples.
Mhm.
And, I won't share them politically, although for some reason I wanted to there is something I kinda wanna bring up regarding
Mhm.
politics, but I won't share his examples, but I said, "Wow, that's really true." And it would be like, as soon as this region got stable, then this happened. You
Mhm.
know, as soon as we were here, then that happened. You know,
Mhm.
that person got killed or something like that. Like, it was orchestrated,
Yeah.
and, I could see where that made sense.
I mean, that's real that's money.
Yeah,
Money and power.
power.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And those 2 things, it'll always corrupt whatever the greater good is,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. You sometimes find it tough to cope with sensory and emotional overload. I brought that up already, didn't I? Or no?
Yeah, not really. I think it was more or less, do you have it? I don't think it was related around the coping part. Uh, nah, I wouldn't say that. I think I have all my coping mechanisms in place for everything. No,
It
seriously.
It says here that there are, different types of empaths. There's emotional, physical, and intuitive. Emotional is highly sensitive to the emotions of other people.
Okay.
And then physical, you're sensitive to the pain and illness of others. They may even experience empathic illnesses or symptoms that
Right.
aren't
Yeah, that
actually.
ain't me. That's I already knew that wasn't me.
Have you heard of that before?
Well, I kinda look at the when we were talking about the second definition as a form of that. You know
Mhm,
what I mean?
mhm.
It's a gift.
Yeah,
It's definitely a gift. There's a purpose for it. It's just not my purpose.
right, right. I have known people who are physically intuitive
Mhm.
when it comes to people who are ill. Like,
Yeah.
they know they're gonna pass soon, they know just
Yeah.
what's going on with them, which I always thought was interesting, so that's
Definitely.
being a physical empath. And
Mhm.
then intuitive empaths are extremely perceptive, no scientific evidence to support it, but they may believe they're psychic or telepathic. I know that's true for me.
That's me without saying telepathic or psychic. So more or less, it's just being in tune with to me, I kinda relate it to observation, but maybe it's not that simple. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Maybe people can see the same thing I'm seeing and not come away with it, but I can definitely see things as, it could even be trends, not like fashion trends, but just like trends of like how the world is moving. Like right now, we're moving into a darker energy. You know what I'm saying? Like the
mhm,
world is coming into everything. Like the music I've been listening to this year, the imagery I've been seeing this year, everything has been getting darker. You know what I'm saying? I could point
mhm.
it out in so many different ways, but that's just it feels like I'm being observant, but I also feel it, right? So then I kind of like have my guard up for the last time that everything was darker. And it's not because it's an election year. You know what I'm saying? Like you could tell in the imagery of the music and people's album artwork and the sounds and the direction that it's going in, it's similar. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, and sometimes I wonder if these people do it intentionally or if it's something that they can't help or they're not paying attention to.
Did you say that you kinda have your guard up about this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, whenever dark energy comes around, it's a time to retreat. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's a time to be on guard. It's a time to pay attention to what's going on. You know what I mean? Because, okay, say for instance, uh, top of the year comes. It's not even the top of the year. It's like the end of last year. All right, I'll be frank. If you go look at the Travis Scott album Astro World before the tragedy happened, it's very colorful. It's bright. Everything was what it was. The album had been out for maybe 4 or 5 years, and it was time for him to release his other album, which was Utopia, right? And with Utopia, everything was from a sound standpoint, before the album dropped, you're thinking Utopia, a perfect world by definition. Utopia comes out finally. The album is black. Everything he's doing is dark. All of the music is dark. It sounds good, but it's dark. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, damn, bro just dropped a dark album. Now there's conspiracy theories and all of this stuff that people could do on YouTube. I ain't even doing all of that. So then like the 21 Savage album comes out and it's called All of Me. And you listen to a lot of the songs, and 21 Savage is one of those people that I listen to. And I'm just naming hip hop just to name it, right? All right. So I'm like, all right, cool. Things are just a little darker. He's got a song called Red Rum, that's murder backwards, some other stuff. He talks about all kinds of stuff on rapping, but it's just like, all right, damn. Then Kanye West and Ty Dolla Sign, they drop an album called Vultures. Now, Kanye, he'll use different colors or whatever, but he's been on this whole Jesus kick, you know what I'm saying, for the past couple of years. You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, everything is dark. You know what I'm saying? All the imagery is dark. He's starting to have more of a God complex again. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like I'm looking at music. I'm looking at, say, you look at the Renaissance album with Beyonce that came out before it was a black background, silver horse, then she moves into Cowboy Carter. It's supposed to feel like it's upbeat, but when I listen to a lot of this stuff, it's not necessarily like upbeat R&B. It's not like lift your spirit R&B. It's like a we're coming R&B. Just my personal opinion. So when I look at those things and I listen to these things and this is the music that's being pumped out there, it's like, oh, okay. Even Taylor Swift's album cover. She just came out with one. I can't remember something about the poets, blah, 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 blah. It's just black and gray. It's like a black and gray photo. All of these things play like a role musically, sonically, right? So you go from there, you look at movies, right? So it started off, you had stuff like Dune, you had like Gorilla versus Kong, you got Monkey Man coming out, you got Trap coming out, which is an M. Night Shyamalan movie. You got the Joker 2, Part 2 coming out. It's dark imagery. You know what I'm saying? It's like almost like a rise of darkness that seems like it's coming out when I'm looking at my entertainment. If you look at everything that happened after Cat Williams was on, and I'm ranting, I'm sorry, stop me at any
No,
time.
keep going.
There was like an interview in which Cat Williams was like, "All right, I'm exposing everybody." And then that became the nature of entertainment. Everybody is exposing everything. You know what I'm saying? There's more beefs, more conflicts, music wise. You know what I'm saying? And so you look at your local news. I don't know how it is in your area, but I know you live in a big city, a big area, so you're gonna see it. You start seeing all these just different random crimes. Not like crime doesn't happen every day, but every day you turn on the news, you're seeing different types of murders, more heinous crimes, more wild acts. And it's just like, oh, you gotta chill out. Gotta have your guard up.
When you mentioned going back to Travis Scott and you said with the Utopia album, there were conspiracy theories on, YouTube, for example. Can you give me an idea? Because the reason I'm asking is because I'm imagining, like, after that happened,
Mhm,
that event happened at
mhm.
his show, that a person might be in a space
Yeah,
where, they're feeling sad and upset, and this is how it's coming out artistically.
could be.
But that wasn't the type of thing about conspiracy theories.
No, 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 no. So conspiracy theories are gonna relate around the most extreme forms of religious battles, battles that we've had for years and years and years. And so,
I do remember.
if you got Christianity, you know what I mean, and you got the study of, what I'm saying, yeah, Muslims and Islam, you know what I mean? You also have your factions of what would be considered dark, which would be like the occult. And there is an ongoing belief that the secular community is really doing things of the occult. You know what I'm saying? And so people can dive as deep as they want to dive into it. You know what I mean? And they can believe what they want to believe. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to tell you is this, is that. You don't know. You know what I mean? It's things that I looked at a time where I don't know. I don't want to ramble, but there was a point in time where they said Beyonce was doing a lot of occult symbolism when she had her album 4 and when she took on the persona Sasha Fierce, and they were saying that Sasha Fierce is the person that you're seeing, which is a form of possession, and it's not really Beyonce, the person that you're seeing when she's on stage. And they'll have interviews and things of that nature that kind of relate back to that. And you believe what you want to believe, you know what I mean? And there'll be talks of like Horus, Isis, and Osiris, you know what I mean? And all of that stuff will be a form of African symbolism that, depending upon what side of the fence you're on, you could either think it's true and real and spiritual and positive, or you could think from a Christianity standpoint that it may be like an abomination or it's a form of the occult or it's idolatry or whatever. And so, what I'm saying is, just to give somebody a background who's listening, when I say conspiracy theories, I'm not talking about something surface level. I'm talking about something deep. You know what I mean? Deeper
Right,
into you going to a place where you may not even feel like going.
right. And I wanna say that
That's the kind of deep thought that I'm in on a daily basis.
right.
That's what I'm
Yes,
saying.
yeah, and when you mention protecting yourself, I protect myself generally by staying in the lane of what brings me peace, but also being aware, uh, of the world and the things that I'm interested in, right? So the thing but relating to what you're saying, lately, my peace has felt so disrupted. I'm like, and I it's not a darkness that you're describing, but I just feel like people are trying to poke the bear. And I've never really cared, and me being the
Okay.
bear, and
Mhm.
I've never really cared for that term,
Right.
but I'm like, why are people trying to poke me?
So that's the
And
whole
then
point.
I have the reaction, you know?
So that's the whole point of what I'm saying, right? To me, it's observant, going back to what we were talking about. But it also is an energy thing for me, right? Which is what we're talking about as well. So my observations align with the energy that I'm feeling, and my energy is aligning with what your energy is. So even if you don't get there with me psychologically, like, you know what I'm saying, thinking the same way
Yeah,
that I'm thinking about it, your feeling is the same feeling. Right?
yeah,
What if
yeah,
this music is riling people up to be aggressive, and that is the nature of what this year feels like, is people attacking you? You basically got to the same point I got to, I just thought about it a different way. You know what
right,
I'm saying?
right, right.
And so,
And
to me, the only important part is the awareness. Like, that's what's always important to me, is that I'm aware of what's going on. So when
w
I so when I joke with you and I say that you can be a floater, right? I don't mean that in a negative way, right? It's almost a angelic way of moving about the world. You know what I'm saying? Like my daughter Marley is a floater, right? It's like you move in this lane of such positivity that it almost seems naive, but you may be protected by the positivity. So then you're not as naive as the person who would be aware that there's some stuff going on and they should be guarded. That makes
right,
sense. Just
right. No,
just simplifying it.
right,
You know
right,
what I'm saying?
right. And not to put me in a box, I do have another side that's
No,
not
no, no,
just
no, 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 no.
positivity, but
That's the
definitely
that's the peaceful part of you though. Like
right.
that's the essence of who you are in a happy state, in a peaceful state. We all are malleable people. You know what I'm saying? I know they say signs are, mutable or malleable or whatever, but I don't know. You know what I mean? But I think we all can change and adapt to a certain extent. But your core is not to be as
Not to hurt anybody or disrupt or
yeah,
anything
yeah.
like that. But and what I wanna say about protection,
Mhm,
I today, I did a deep dive into my, prayer and meditation,
mhm.
this morning because I wanted to be armed when I left the house.
Right.
And what I thought was so interesting was the way, and I've noticed this before, but it was just so blatant today that people were just the way that they would speak to me, like
Mhm,
strangers,
mhm.
would speak to me and hi and what's your name and just in passing. And I do see a difference. It was magnified today versus I can see this other times. If I'm like very consistent with my spiritual practice, when I
Mm,
go out in the world, I know people are picking up on my energy and I get responses to that.
right.
And today it was magnified. And I
Mhm.
thought that was so interesting because I had taken this deep dive, not and it wasn't I wouldn't have called it protection, but protection was a part of it, but
That's fair.
it was more of I wanna be armed.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
wanna be armed in the way that I want to be armed.
And that goes back to what I was asking you earlier, like, are you normally in deep thought? And that would be a form of deep thought for me. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like
Yeah.
in that moment, you're doing things, you know what I'm saying? You're walking, you're out, you're performing whatever errand or whatever task you got to like you have to perform, but at the same time, you have an awareness in your thinking and deciding how everybody's affected by whatever, you know what I'm saying? By your
Right,
prayer,
right,
by your energy, by the protection. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's not like typical surface level thoughts to me.
right, right.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're talking about this because yesterday I was thinking about Donald Trump
Mhm,
and how when he was elected in 2016
mhm.
and everything just got crazy and divisive and
Yeah,
just everything happened. And
yeah.
I felt because I was also seeing people who are white
Mhm.
wanting to understand different cultures and different races.
Uh-huh.
and not wanting to be divisive
Mhm.
and, taking steps to really understand other people, I felt like this is going to pass. This divisiveness is going to pass. And then here we are where we are. I still believe that this is going to pass at some point. I don't know when. It could be 15, 20 years. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
We
I
agree.
think it's interesting that we are in this when you say we're in a dark place,
Yeah.
I think that that's true. I mean, you see it even more extreme than I see it.
I
And
mean, everything. Like, I was just thinking when you were talking, like, the eclipse, you know what I mean? It's a leap year, it's an election year, it's an Olympic year. It's a lot going on, man. Like, it's not just a regular year, you know what
yes,
I'm saying? And
yes,
so, I don't know. I don't know what it means. It might mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? It may not affect my life the same way it affects somebody else's life,
yeah.
and vice versa.
And one more thing I wanna bring up related to this is that earlier today, I was just reading this story about NPR, which I didn't know NPR was in trouble in terms of listeners.
Mhm,
And one of the issues going on is that I guess some people within the organization think that it's too liberal,
mhm.
and I don't know if that has to do with people tuning out, but there's a big issue going on there. They've lost like 18 million listeners in 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and so the article was raising the question of can they survive? And, I was just wondering to myself, are people just not caring? Thinking that this this platform, NPR, is too liberal. And is that another statement to where we are, where people just don't care?
I think people care. I think the way we consume media now is very dangerous. Um and so that's part of it, right? Like we don't watch linear television as much as we used to. We don't consume music the same way that we used to consume music, you know what I mean? Um so what ends up happening in that situation, just to kind of like wrap it up as far as my thought, I think people have to search for information that they want, but that leaves you more susceptible to traps, right? As opposed to
Mm.
if there was a streamlined thought or consciousness about something in particular, then you could deviate from whatever that sentiment is. So, like if it's the news and it's CNN, Fox, MSNBC, all of these people, and they're just pushing whatever they want to push, then you could say, all right, all 3 or all 4 of these platforms are saying the same thing. So there's some truth in that. This particular platform is saying one thing, so it may be leaning in that direction. Now it's not like that because we don't really consume it that in that fashion, right? It's kind of like you go look for what you want and then people just reinforce what you wanted to find in the first place, right? So if you want to find that the world is divisive, you can go find that. If you want to find that we're all together, you can go find that. And I think with NPR, by it being linear, people just aren't in tune with just listening to stuff that's linear.
Right, right. Well, I appreciate this, and to wrap it up, I want you to share. I'm curious if I always like to ask spiritual questions. And so I'm just going to ask you this one about just what you feel called to do. Like, what do you think God is calling you to do at this point for you, your family, for others? Has that changed at all? With you having a new child and your family expanding, just evolving as a person, or you're pretty consistent in terms of who you are?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much feel like my calling is the same. When we spoke about this last time, I was um I was saying that I feel like my calling is to guide maybe one person, you know what I'm saying? And that person could be whoever, like, that's close to me. In particular, it was my son, you know what I mean? Possibly, but being aware that it could possibly be somebody else. Not knowing that I was gonna have a daughter or have another child in general, my awareness is that could possibly be her, you know what I mean? And that influence isn't to diminish. whatever I'm gonna put into my son or my other daughter or other people around me. It's just an awareness thing. So I don't really know. I think more so than anything, I've just been focused on my mortality and
Mhm.
surviving and living a longer life. I mean, I always thought that way, but just like putting years on it. Now I'll do simple stuff like, oh, okay, if I want to live to be 100, I got to be here till 2082. What the hell does 2082 look like? You know what I'm saying? Because it's only 2024. And I wonder if people that are 100 years old or over 100 or people in their 90s ever really took the time to think like, yeah, I want to live a long time. So what does 2024 look like? What does 2020 look like? What does 2015 look like? And did it look like any of that stuff? And I think as you get older, you get wiser and you understand you can't predict any of it. So you just got to go with the flow. You know what I
Right.
mean? And that's kind of like how I approach it.
Right.
This thing could be anything. You know what I mean? And not to get like not to get crazy, but if you look at the political landscape of how we treat people, whether it's the LGBTQIA plus community as far as trans rights and trans people and how the pendulum swung all the way over to we're going to give them everything. You know what I'm saying? As far as opportunities, rights, considerations. And then all of a sudden that pendulum started swinging back a little bit is like, okay, we're taking certain things back, whether it's competition in sports, whether it's, and I'm not saying this to judge, but I'm just saying it swings in different ways and you just don't know what it is. Like never in my lifetime did I think in high school when you're writing papers and they're like, yo, pick a topic, euthanasia, Roe v. Wade, da 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 da, that you come back in 2023 and it's a big ass fight about Roe v. Wade. There's an attack on Planned Parenthood. It's not to say I'm leaning one way or the other when I say these things. What I'm saying is this stuff can get cyclical and it can get odd and it can get weird. And if you just didn't think about it, then you would be
Yeah.
like, what's going on?
Right.
Kind of got to
Right.
go with the flow, man.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the wisdom that you're sharing throughout the conversation is go with the flow and take it, easy. Like, don't buy into everything.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. If you buy into something, that means you were trying to be sold on it. You know what I'm saying? I think more so than anything, when something aligns with your spirit, that's the most natural right thing that can be presented to you. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're like, hey, this feels like Adrian, you know what I mean? It's more than
Yeah.
likely right. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But
Right.
if you got to kind of figure out the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, is this right? Is this morally right? Is it morally wrong? That's when you know you're dealing in uncharted territory. And at that point in time, I just take the mindset to observe.
Yeah. And
Don't
I think that also for me, that has to do with knowing uh yourself or me knowing
definitely.
myself. Like if I know myself, if I'm tuned in with myself
Yep.
into the truth of my higher self, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
just then I'm not gonna be swayed. I could be curious, I
Yeah.
could be, open,
Hmm.
but I have a foundation.
Yep. That's real.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It was a good convo.
Yeah. Well, part of your calling is to podcast.
Probably.
Maybe.
You know what? That's a conversation for off the podcast. But I'm gonna tell you what I think about that.
Okay. All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us. You can listen to all Let's Start Healing episodes on traditional platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Send me an email at Let's Start Healing Podcast at gmail.com. Find us on social media. And until next time, let's start healing.